Can you hear me over the ocean? A satellite said that you would. Can you save a ship from a sailor? Tell me these words have been misunderstood. And I only wanna be the one to hold you again. And I swallow like an empty sun, just pulling you in. Oh, 132 questions make their way down South Main every day. Small town bars and highway connections. I try, but I just can't board my last flight. And I only wanna be the one to hold you again. And I swallow like an empty sun, just pulling you in.
So that's really all there is to the collecting and the filtering of the maple sap. I know I'm going to get a lot of questions on what I'm using to filter out the sap, and it is actually just an old t-shirt here. I didn't even bother to really cut it up. I find it works better when it's whole. That way you get 2 layers of filtration, and as it gets wet, as it absorbs kind of the sap, the whole shirt will become wet over time, and it helps to weight it down so that when you're pouring the sap in, it doesn't dump into the bucket there, which can happen when it's first starting out. You can always take clothespins and clothespin it to the edge, but I find just the weight of the moisture on the edges just kind of helps pin it down there. And that's really all there is to it. It's super simple, and obviously I will show you the end process. That's kind of the sweet treat that you get at the end, but I figured this would be worthwhile showing you the collection and the filtration and kind of our boiling setup here. Now the boiling setup obviously is just a turkey boiler. We got it at Home Depot, and we've had it for a couple years now, and it's served us really well. It's definitely not the most efficient, and it's certainly not the ideal method. Ideally, you'd want a little more surface area, because this here holds about 6 gallons, and it's just not, there's not a lot of surface area. The more surface area you have, the more it's going to boil off, because the shallower the pan. I mean, I'd prefer to have still 6 gallons, or more obviously, but if I had a 6-gallon pan that was square, it'd boil off about 3 to 4 times faster than a 6-gallon cylinder. And that's just because of surface area. So obviously there are methods out there, but this really has served its purpose pretty well for us, and we still get to the same result in the end. I do get asked all the time this next question, and that's, can you make some money doing this? In this method, not really. I don't suggest ever trying this to make a living or even a quick buck. It's just the amount that you do and the amount of time that it takes. Not only that, but the cost of the propane. It's going to give you, obviously it's an investment that will pay for itself. All of this kind of gets covered by the maple syrup that we make, but it's definitely not enough to really pay for your time plus supplies. It's just not economically viable. With that being said, a gallon of maple sap, or a gallon of maple syrup, will run about $60 to $70 at market price. So we're going to get about a gallon here, because we have still some sap here in the cooler, plus what I collected today, and we'll have about 30 to 40 gallons of maple sap. And that brings us to the next question, which is how many gallons, how much sap do you need to make a gallon of syrup? And it's quite surprising. you'll actually need about 30 to 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. So there's a lot of labor involved. It's certainly a labor of love, which is also why it costs so much. So I'm really excited about this, and I do think that we're going to do quite well. And on a final note here, I will also say that the sooner you can tap your trees, the better. If you can tap your trees in mid to late February, when it's still very cold out most days, but it just kind of peaks above freezing on some days, the trees will begin running. But the sap you're going to get from those trees has a much higher sugar content. The sap content in these trees, we are tapping sugar maples, which is around 4 to 5%. You'll find in the early spring, very early, I say early spring, I guess late winter you could still technically call it. In the late winter, around mid-February, you'll have around 5 to 7% sugar content, because maple trees, well, any tree really, stores sap down in its roots. And when it gets warmer, it will send its sap up to the leaves to begin photosynthesizing. Well, it creates energy for the leaves to come out so that it can photosynthesize and create more sugars. And those sugars actually act as a natural antifreeze. You'll find that your cold weather greens, they actually get sweeter as the weather gets colder as well, because water will freeze at around 32 degrees Fahrenheit, but add sugar to that and you'll find that it actually freezes slightly colder. It's much like adding salt. Anything that you can dissolve in water will actually decrease the purity, so pure water will freeze at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, but you'll find the more things you have dissolved into the water, the more you can, the lower the temperature can get before it freezes. So you'll find that the sugar content is higher in the spring, so that the tree does not freeze as it's sending up its sugars, which would then cause the cells in the tree to rupture and cause the tree to die. And the final thing that I thought I would mention, don't think that you can do this indoors. This definitely is a project for the outdoors, because the amount of steam that's created from this process here is enough to strip paint off the walls. And you definitely do not want to ruin your walls, because the humidity created from all this will wreak havoc on your house. So do this outdoors, and then when it gets close to finishing, we'll take it indoors, and I'll show you that process. So hopefully you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for next episode. We're gonna have a really good one for you all that are still interested in maple tapping and getting all the gear you need to set up. I have a really cool tool to show you all, and that's going to be next episode. So hopefully you all enjoyed. Hopefully you'll learn something new. Remember to share these videos with a friend if you're enjoying them. And as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow big or go home. We'll catch y'all later. See ya. Bye.